I live in the Silicon Valley, and every day you get groundbreaking news about AI. But then you walk into a CXO's office and ask them what benefit they're getting out of AI. More than half would tell you that they're not seeing much value come out of this. We recognized this about a year ago, and we felt there was a huge opportunity to help enterprises accelerate AI adoption. But then to do that, we quickly realized that we have to transform ourselves first.
So we want to do this for 20, 25
Even
minutes?
20s,
The shorter, the better.
Yeah.
Or it has to be very long.
I said, I'm not Sam Altman, so.
One of the interesting thing about your company, you are a much smaller company, but your client base are Fortune 500. What is the reason they keep coming back to you compared to working with the larger partners?
In this new world, when you start working with a company like us, we start with outcomes in mind. So that's a big mindset that we did. And so when you start working with outcomes in mind, customers are looking at saying, hey, these folks, they've been working with me for a while. We have built a trust. Pari, I'll tell you something. I'm going to make a provocative statement. I think the era of a knowledge worker is over.
Welcome back to Zinnov Podcast Business Resilience Series. I'm joined today by Dinesh Venugopal, CEO of Tenarai, formerly Infogain, a global enterprise AI acceleration company working with Fortune 500 companies across industries, retail, travel, insurance, healthcare, and telecom. Dinesh brings deep cross-functional experience in product strategy, product engineering, M&A, and global operations. Before Tenarai, he was president at Concentric Catalyst, CEO of PK Global, which got acquired by Concentric, and president at Emphasis, where we grew the business from 300 million to over $1 billion. Welcome to our podcast, Dinesh.
Pari, thanks for having me.
Dinesh, first let's start with this new company name, Tenarai. What are the reasons for the name change? Infogain has been in the business for the last 30 plus years, providing engineering service to customers. What are the reasons for the change?
So it's a great question, Pari. First, let me give you some context. I live in the Silicon Valley, and every day you get groundbreaking news about AI. There are new models, new tools, new technologies getting dropped. But then you walk into a CXO's office and ask them what benefit they're getting out of AI. More than half would tell you that they're not seeing much value come out of this. We recognized this about a year ago, and we felt there was a huge opportunity to help enterprises accelerate AI adoption. But then to do that, we quickly realized that we have to transform ourselves first. So we pivoted around three big pillars. Number one was our talent and delivery. So we completely redid our delivery model. We are now more engineering oriented than delivery oriented in the traditional sense. We built out a platform, AI platform. And then finally, we built out a partner ecosystem. And I believe that in this new world, you need to have a really strong partner ecosystem to help our customers succeed. So with all of this going on, we also started doing a bunch of use cases for our customers. And many of them got into production. And the customers were delighted by the progress that we made along with them on this journey. And so we looked at ourselves and say, hey, this new company requires a new identity. And that's how Tenarai was born. So when you think of Tenarai, think of us as the one who's obsessed with outcomes, helping our customers achieve outcomes as opposed to doing projects and technology-led plays like we used to do before. So this is a big transformation for us. We first did our transformation ourselves and then decided for a new identity.
Very, very interesting. So you started working in a newer model using all of the newer AI technology, and then that required a change in identity.
That's right.
Interesting. Last week I was in a conference with a whole lot of CIOs, and one thing which came out is the board is pushing them hard on AI, and then they're spending quite a lot of money. If you look at Anthropic revenue growth, 10x revenue growth in a year, you're starting to see this consumption and spend on AI. But we come to measurable results. The two things I heard. One, they've made this massive bets on large platforms, but they're a significant failure. Or they're taking shots at very small use cases that's not getting them enough results. And you're working with them day to day. How are you creating measurable results for your clients? Some examples.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. One of the things you see in enterprises today is what I call pilot purgatory. They're stuck in pilot mode. And they are thinking about how to get out of the pilot mode into from proof of concept to proof of value. And why are they stuck in pilot mode? And you typically look at this and see that they are doing these pilots, and pilots are very easy to do in the AI world. And that's where a lot of the spends happen. The token gets spent, a couple of CXOs come in, they sit in the office, do a proof of concept. But when you really look at what it takes to go into production, you need enterprise context, you need the data to be in the right place, you need the security, you need governance. So only if you have all of those things set up do you see results in the new world. So customers that have adopted what we call a three-layered approach. There's a foundational layer. You're deciding what LLMs to choose there, what governance models you want there. And then the middle layer is what we call the AI readiness layer. Is your data in the right place? Do you have the agentic frameworks that you need? And then the top layer is what we call the business value layer. And business value is how do you create actual use cases that can create value. So if you start just from the top, you'll be in pilot land. If you start just on the bottom, you won't have anything to show. So you need all three layers to fire to show the value. And that's where we are seeing any customer that adopts this three-layer approach is starting to see a lot more value happen in a quicker way than just doing proof of concepts.
Very interesting. And to drive this three-layer approach, what we see is many of the customers don't seem to have internal know-how because they need to continue to run their existing business. Significant chunk of their bandwidth goes into driving that. They don't seem to have internal know-how. This whole concept Palantir talked about forward deployed engineers, and some of the companies are using them as well. Too expensive, they're still using that. What is your approach to get your customers adopt these three areas?
So we have completely transformed the way we go and interact with the customer. We're not calling it go-to-market as customer engagement model. The first is we have this concept called AI squads. So AI squads are dedicated AI experts dedicated to customers. So they have the customer context, they have the domain context, and they also know the technology required to solve problems. So once the AI squads start working with the customer to identify the problem and say, what is the first proof of value that we can show, then we start deploying our forward deployed engineers. And how do they come together? Because the forward deployed engineers kind of have to have three things in that group. We call a forward deployed engineer pod. First, you have to have really good understanding of customer context. Where do they come from? People who are existing, working on the customer for a very long time. Second, domain context, and that's where you bring the industry experts. And third is where the technology, what tools you use, what partners you use, what ecosystem you use, and that's when you start seeing real value. And that's why, smaller, more nimble, more agile companies like us are able to help our customers adopt AI faster. And that's why you're able to accelerate their AI journey.
And one of the interesting thing about your company, right, Tenarai, we always like is you are a much smaller company, but your client base of Fortune 500, especially with this AI transformation these companies are going through, they have access to all the large companies. What is the reason they keep coming back to you compared to working with the larger partners?
In this new world, when you start working with a company like us, we start with outcomes in mind. So that's a big mindset that we did. And so when you start working with outcomes in mind, customers are looking at saying, hey, these folks, they've been working with me for a while. We have built a trust. Our NPS is very high. We have an NPS of 83, which means they really like working with us. So that's the first step. They trust us, they work with us. So they're saying, let me give this small company, this nimble company, this agile company who's in the forefront of AI adoption a chance. And we start working with them. The moment we start working with them, we're saying we're not selling them anything. We're saying, let's do a proof of concept. And the proof of concept is not in a demo mode. It is in their sandbox. And we say, look, within 6 weeks, we can actually prove value. For one of our customers, I'll give you an example. We're doing a concept called Dark Factory for them. They call it Smart Factory, but Dark Factory. In that model, we have just three engineers working together to completely code on a new brownfield plus greenfield project and figure out next week whether this model will work or not in production. They're creating these features for in production. And so that is a great model that we have seen these examples of how customers are working with us on leading edge. Now imagine you work with a larger company. They will come in with PowerPoint. And by the way, Pari, one important thing, every client I speak to has got pitch fatigue, AI pitch fatigue. If you go with a PowerPoint deck and show them, they are just going to throw up all over you. They say like, I'm tired of pitches. So that's why our approach works, because they trust us, they worked with us, they know we are engineering capabilities, they know we can do technology. Now bring all this together.
Very interesting. And you're also using your AI squads and FDE who have the context of the company, industry, as well as technology prowess to bring all that together to build the 3 layers.
And I completely, and I think building internally the FDE model has been one of the hardest things we have ever done. Right? How do you identify what an FD is? Who should be an FD? How do you build that? How do you get the existing people to train to become FDs? What context are you missing? So we have we started with a hackathon in the company. We had, I had 5,500 people open to, and then I won't tell you number of selected, but it's only a small percentage of them got selected as FDs. It's not that others don't qualify. It's just that we want a ready-made FD, and a small percentage qualified. And those folks, we are taking them and training them and getting them to be full-fledged FDs to do these very, very cool customer projects.
Okay. So you've been able to train them. So it's not have to be hired from outside. You're able to
we are also hiring. We are also hiring from the outside.
So
we need to do both. Yeah.
Combination of the people who have existing client contacts plus people coming from the industry, so you're able to build that team together.
Correct. So what we're hiring, it has to be one of the 3. The customer context you can't hire. Right, domain context you can hire a little bit, and the technology, if they are very good at 1 or 2 technology, we can hire them as well. So that's how we put the pod together to make this happen.
Got it. So I want to switch into the next wave of moving from a Gen AI to agent model. Like when we think about AI deployment, we think of it in 3 types of deployment. One is an individual productivity. You and I use it on a day-to-day basis. Second is the enterprise workflow automation. We tried that with RPA, it didn't work. Now the AI sounds a lot of promise in driving enterprise workflow automation. But third is more exciting, is building new capability for the organization. That Jensen Huang talks about the world GDP is 100 trillion, AI is going to potentially make it 500 trillion. So it's really capacity enablement of enterprise. So agents seems to play a big role across these areas. So what is your experience in deploying agents? Are there some real case studies you're seeing customer where it's working and creating measurable outcomes?
Absolutely. So I think agentic AI is probably one of the most important technology changes that I've seen in my career and lifetime. Like I said, I've been in the Valley. We worked together, Pari, many years ago, and we've seen many different technology shifts. But this is one of the biggest shifts. But adoption is a rare commodity. Agentic AI adoption in enterprises is a rare commodity. But I'll tell you where it has worked in simple use cases and where it's worked in more, when the process has been reimagined. So think about a case where you are doing your insurance company and you want to do, say, P&C claims. One of the ways you can expedite the process is after an accident, you take pictures and you take the picture, use AI, figure out how quickly this is a real incident, you process the claims, and what would take 2 weeks could be done in 4 hours. That's a case of process re-engineering, right? And I think that is working out really well. You can see immediate cost benefit, immediate time case as well. Now, we're working on some cases where the process is not re-engineered but reimagined. And that is where I think the Jensen example and other examples where you're going to see phenomenal non-linear, significant non-linear value. And in this case, if you take this is one of the cases that we are talking to a customer about. So an accident happens. A lot of times you get notified either by the car or by phone. And that is the starting point of the entire experience. right? So you can get the emergency vehicle in, you can get them help, you can figure out the entire experience. So the photo and the claims becomes one part of this entire process of how you reimagine a very bad scenario in your life. Right? How do you make that better and that experience better? That is where the difference between process reimagining and process reengineering comes in the picture. And you're seeing value in both, because you're seeing good expansion, good process reengineering is where I'm seeing now use cases being implemented. Process reimagining is where I see the business case shifting and things more happening more in that non-linear way.
Interesting. So this is from a individual productivity to business efficiency, enterprise efficiency, to almost like business expansion.
Exactly. And so it's a completely changing the experience. So you have to reimagine the whole thing. So I was working with L1, L2 support. So one of the customers came to us and said, we wanted to add a chatbot to our L1, L2 support. So we stopped and asked them, say, what outcome are you trying to achieve? No, we just want to, because we want to implement a chatbot very quickly. We want to get AI. So again, we went back and said, look, it's easy to do a chatbot, but what are you trying to do? He said, we are trying to get wait times reduced significantly, right? In the RPA world, in the old process engineering world, what would you have done is we looked at the process, we get a process expert, look at all the automation points, and we would go and automate. And that's why, and you get benefits. You obviously get benefit from digitization. That's a difference between digitization and AI-led transformation. In this case, we went back and found that what they're really looking at is they want to reduce customer wait times. And no amount of chatbot could probably reduce customer wait time. They get very frustrated. So we looked at all the cases where there were customer wait times. We did analysis and figured out what process was broken and how you could reimagine it to reduce customer wait times to zero.
Yeah. And so in this scenario, a traditional tech services business is based on time and material, a number of consultants you deploy, right? And also, profit has been in the bottom of the pyramid. You have more junior engineers, you have senior technical architects, and that's how you go to market with. Now you're moving into an outcome for the client, you're focused on outcome for the client. How's your business model changing to capture the value from change in how you work with the customers?
Pari, I'll tell you something. I'm going to make a provocative statement. I think the era of a knowledge worker is over. Right? You're not going to be hired by your customer for what you know. And that shift is dramatically happening, and I'm seeing this right in front of me, that shift happening. And every AI project that we work on, and the reason why customers are looking at outcome is not because outcome is a more easier way, better way to measure. They are not able to identify and tell you for this project how many engineers are needed, because they have AI efficiencies, process efficiencies, how much is the cost going to be. So they rely on saying, I want these outcomes done. I'm modernizing your entire store for you. I want these modernized, and here is what my cases should look like, and tell me what would it cost me. Right? And so it is not fixed price. You do a project and I got these 5 story. It is not about, productivity in terms of how many story points you do. All of those are important, so there are paths to success, but it's truly outcome based and saying, this is the outcome that we are looking at. I want to reduce customers' wait times, like I said. I want to reduce the number of clicks that your customer is doing before something gets on a cart. I want abandon rates to be lower. And let's focus on this outcome and then start working together on what to reduce the outcomes. And the confidence that we have when we take on something like this, the AI and the technology when applied is so non-linear that if we have the data in the right place, if you have a unified data platform, which in this case this customer I'm speaking about has, it becomes a lot easier for us to make those commitments as opposed to a POC.
So the clients are willing to pay you part of the efficiency gain as a value?
So we have a model where we have like a base price and here's what it is.
Okay.
And then we gain share based on what we do. That's one model. The other model is, I want these set of things done, these outcomes done. And because you're not one full project, there's a many multi-year project. In phase 1, this is what I'm going to get done in phase 1. And here is how I say acceptance is done. And so there's a lot of, for us it's a big change because we are all used to a different model. But the moment I tell my teams that the knowledge era, worker era is done, people wake up and they say, look, we have to focus on outcome engineering.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, this question. This change, as a CEO of a company which is going through this change, I'm pretty sure it's not easy, right? You have multiple layers of your own organization. One is your client organization. How has it been, the transformation within your own organization?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, I think every CEO talks about, but I think humility is a virtue in this kind of environment. That humility to know that you don't know a lot of things and you have to rely on other people to make things happen, in the AI world especially. So I think that's an important thing as CEO, that you have to understand. So you start listening more to customers, listening more to employees, listening more to investors. So all three of them bring different perspective. And this transformation, when we started off, was like the blind man feeling the elephant. If I talk to the employees, they feel like the tail for them. For them, it's AI adoption. When I talk to the customers, it's about enterprise, it's a trunk, right? It's about enterprise AI adoption. How can you get the outcomes that I want? For the investors, hey, what value are you creating? And it kind of felt that they're all looking at very different things. So one of the biggest challenges I have is to show all three of them the big picture. Our customers need to see that, hey, this transformation, and the reason why we're able to deliver and why we think we can deliver is because we are transforming internally. Our teams are different. The FD model is important. The AI squads are important. Work with them because that's important. The investors telling them this is a major transformation. Industry is now going to be what it used to be. And the value that creating is very different. So that shift, that dramatic shift, is an important piece of managing this change. And I think I think the transformation is barely done. I think just the tip of the iceberg.
It's interesting. So humility and ability to communicate the change effectively to different stakeholders, be it employees who are probably worried about what does it inform my job,
correct,
my career, investors in terms of value for the investment, and your clients in terms of outcome you deliver to the client. So each one of them are different, but you need to bring the communication together.
And you can't address each of them separately because it's all a interconnected story. It is not three different stories. And it's not because it's three different, because they are all interconnected, because they are going to see our transformation and change. Customers are going to see how we are moving existing resources that they like to work with so much into an FD model. So they want to see the shift and say, I don't want to move my people. So you have to talk to them why this is an important shift. To investors, say, hey, I'm seeing these kind of changes. How does this really truly creating value? To employees, even like you said, there are two important things. One, they're always concerned about your job. At the same time, they see excitement. How do you balance the two? So we have this concept, which unlike all other changes, Pari, this change, the shift to cloud, you could learn some certifications and become a cloud expert. The shift to digital, you could learn some certifications, new technology, you learn Java, you could have done this. But this one is different. The employees need to transform. So we have this concept called I transform. Every employee needs to say, I can't teach you Claude 5.5 because by the time I finish teaching you and you get a certificate, 6.0 is coming out. How do you teach that? So this transformation is very personal. You have to transform yourself. So this is something we're driving. So we have this Tenarai tea that we have. And each tea has got a tie with an employee. Every employee has got a story about how they have transformed.
Yeah. So thank you, Dinesh. I think in a very short time, you took us through the need for a change in identity for Tenarai from Infogain and helping us understand how customers are gaining value from AI. And more importantly, the tough transformation as a CEO you need to go through in driving this change within your company. And it seemed like this is the start of the transformation, and a lot more needs to be done in the next several years. Maybe we'll get you back next year and have a conversation on how this transformation went in the last year.
Yeah, I agree, Pari. Really enjoyed the conversation as always. I love talking to you, but very excited and delighted of what the future holds for us. Looking forward to it, and we'll talk to you soon.
A big thank you to our listeners for listening into the Business Resilience Podcast. Till the next one, here's your host, Pari Natarajan.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.